Andrew, how are you doing?
Good, good.
Excellent. You just came back from Iran.
Yeah, just a little morning jog. I'm with my family in Thames, so my cousin lives around the corner. I thought I'd go for a run with her. She's doing her first ultra marathon in October, so I thought we'd hang out for an hour or so.
Right. So when you say a short jog, how many kilometers was that?
Just over 10 k's.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because my definition of a short jog and your definition of a short jog are probably completely different.
it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Andrew, I was thinking. So when we met first time, it would have been about 4, maybe 5 years ago. And you were then studying your career in real estate. You did quite well, and then everything you completely changed things, and now you are doing ultra runs, endurance racing, all of that stuff. But take me through the last few years. What has happened with you with your life in the last few years?
Well, I guess it probably even goes back further than that. Like I
Mm.
kind of, I guess I always kind of had aspirations to do real estate, but I think they were for the wrong reasons,
Right.
potentially. I've always been in sales, whether it's door to door or insurance or accounting or whatever it is. I've always kind of sold things.
Hmm.
So eventually I just said, forget it. Let's do real estate because I wanted to be my own boss and,
Yeah.
the money and all those sorts of things. And without a doubt, real estate provided me being my own boss and provided good income,
Yeah.
but it just didn't give me the freedom that I wanted. And I think I wasn't at a position in my life where I was ready to settle in one area.
Mm.
And obviously real estate takes a lot of commitment to that one area and takes a lot of time to kind of get settled in for people to know you and those sorts of things. So,
Yeah.
so I guess it was just the wrong place, wrong time. And then after that, I was kind of already working towards doing my first endurance race.
Right.
So I did, my first run, ran 120 kilometers in 24 hours. That was with obstacles. I placed 36th in the world.
Wow. Wow.
With 6 to 8 months of running experience.
Yeah.
I'd done a lot of CrossFit and I'd done a lot of boxing and that sort of stuff. And then I went into this race, placed 36 in the world with no expectations, and was kind of, I guess I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So that's when I kind of dropped everything to focus on the athletics, and really push for my goal for the next year was 160 Ks. It turns out that was probably the toughest year they've ever had in regards to conditions. It was freezing temperatures. The obstacles were harder, the penalties were harder.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of where I saw that I had potential, was although I didn't hit my personal goal of 100 miles, I placed 6th in the world just because I was able to suffer through low temperatures and tough obstacles better than most others.
Was that in New Zealand or overseas?
No, they were, so that both those races were in Las Vegas.
Right. Yeah.
And since then I have been doing races closer to home just because there have been some on offer. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you do a lot of long distance endurance. So it's not just running, it's running plus obstacles, which makes it a lot harder as well, right?
yeah, well, I guess it's debatable. I mean, the obstacles kind of make it less monotonous.
Right. Yeah.
And saying that, it kind of links into life, I guess, to a certain extent as well. But if it's just running for running's sake, it's it's enjoyable, and as long as there's scenes, I couldn't run around a track for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I could now just for suffering's sake, but the obstacles kind of break up that monotony and actually give it something, give it an edge, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what are your goals for this year? Because I'm sure the lockdown and the pandemic would have slowed things down for you. I think you were going to do the Northburn 100, and then that got completely cancelled. Then you went for a run on your own anyway. But things are probably you probably went a little bit back in terms of training and goals, or are your goals still on track?
Well, the time frames changed. So I was meant to have a 24-hour race on the on the 6th of June, I think it was.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not happening. That was in Sydney, Australia. And I ended up, that's been pushed back to the end of September, which is kind of good because I was planning on doing this mountain run, which is on the 6th of June. I've always wanted to. It's called Mount Difficulty. A friend of mine, he's the organizer of the Northburn 100 as well. He loves to make people suffer. So him and I have a great relationship because I enjoy suffering. So this race it's a 44-kilometer race, but it's got 3,400 meters of climbing. So it's very steep.
Yeah.
The steepest gradient at one point, I think, is about 64%.
Wow.
So if you think about trucks engine braking on 12.5%, it's a climb.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do that race 6th of June. It happens to be New Zealand Sky Running Championships, and I feel like I'm in the running for a podium. Maybe I'm gonna run my own race.
Yeah.
And as long as I kind of do what I need to do, then I could potentially be up there.
Yeah.
And then I have hopefully Spartan Race New Zealand have a race in Auckland end of July. Hopefully that goes ahead, and that'll be technically New Zealand champs. In their defence, it's their only race in New Zealand, so I guess that automatically makes it New Zealand champs. And then the big race of the year is a 24-hour obstacle course race in Sydney, Australia again. True Grit Enduro is what it's called. So.
Wow. Incredible. So how do you, because I try and do a little bit of running. I think I kind of break down at about 25 kilometers, and my goal for January 2021, which I probably need to postpone, was to do a 100-kilometer run in the South Island. But I think I'll probably end up this year only doing 50 kilometers. But there's that ongoing training and getting up early and keep on going. How do you keep yourself, because I know a lot of people have their goals and they try and train, but then they stop. But how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep on going all the time, getting up at 5 a.m. and going for a run? How do you set your mind to keep on going?
Discipline. So am I allowed to swear here?
Very lightly swearing. Very lightly swearing.
All right, I'll change the word. You'll probably figure out what I'm saying. I have a quote on my wall which says along the lines of "forget motivation," and it's not that I don't rely on motivation or have motivation. I'm not David Goggins. I'm not an absolute masochist to the point where it's just unenjoyable, but there are more days where you aren't motivated to start, and if there's motivation there, then I use it. Absolutely. If I wake up in the morning and it's meant to be a rest day, but I'm feeling energized and motivated and the sun's shining and I'm just good to go, then I'll go out for a run without a doubt. I'll also listen to my body, and obviously if I'm tired and, if I'm feeling exhausted, which takes time to truly learn whether it's just exhaustion or it's just a lack of motivation.
Yeah.
But if I know that I am not feeling 100% and shouldn't go for a run today, then I won't. But for the days that I wake up and I feel like I am tired, but I know that it's just a lack of motivation, that's when I rely on discipline, and it's about actually getting out. 9 times out of 10, by the time I've done a couple of kilometers, the motivation starts to come anyway. Motion creates emotion.
Yeah.
And I actually learned that in sales, ironically. But yeah, motion creates emotion. And after a couple of kilometers, especially by a river, if you're down on a trail, or, if you're somewhere where there's good scenery or there's people that or like, then it starts to flow. But like I say, for that first couple of kilometers, it's just about being disciplined and thinking about that. Thinking about that long-term goal, thinking about that 100Ks or that 50Ks or whatever it is, the marathon, whatever the goal is, thinking about that and what it's going to take to be able to achieve that and how you're going to feel having achieved that.
Yeah. I saw a post that you put on Instagram, I think a few weeks ago, and two things caught my eye. One was a photo of you in the past when you were young and a photo of you right now, and the difference in sizes. And the second thing is that you said that you're willing to to mentor a couple of people on running, on long distance running. Why the difference between you when you were young and how you look right now, is that one of your motivators or the things that push you to?
No, it's not. I didn't actually know that I was that big. I knew that I wasn't a healthy kid, you know. I used to sit down in front of TV and watch TV for 8-9 hours a day, or a computer screen and play RuneScape for way too many hours. That game owes me big time. And whilst sitting down in front of the TV or computer, I would go through tubs of cookies and cream ice cream. So I knew that I wasn't healthy, but I didn't know I was that big. And then a few weeks ago, my sister sent me that photo, and she was like, "Oh, you know, this is." She said that she was very proud of me, but I didn't realize I was that big. You know what I mean? So that was kind of when I went, "Oh, okay, so it's obviously possible." My motivations have changed over time. So when I first left school, I was very well. I was bigger. I wasn't necessarily in shape.
Yeah.
So my goal and my motivation when I first left school was just to get, become a better shape so I could be a bit of a ladies' man and look a bit better and all of those sorts of things. So that was my motivation initially. Then I started to get a little bit stronger, and then I wanted to do a little bit more fitness. So I started boxing, and then I started CrossFit. And that's when I did CrossFit, that's when I started obstacle racing. And through obstacle racing, I mean, initially I hated running. The only reason I ran was to get from obstacle to obstacle. And then eventually I got reasonably good at running, and I realized I could run up a mountain and see the views a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently. I could do things that I didn't think that I'd be able to do previously.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my motivating factor now, is just becoming a better athlete and caring less about aesthetics and caring more about health and longevity. So with that post that I put up, it wasn't necessarily just to help people become better runners, but actually just to live better lifestyles. And I think running, whether it's running a 10K or running a 100-miler, helps.
Yeah.
With the right motivation.
One thing that really interests me with long distance running, it's the same. I guess it's the same as in business. There's that constant challenge of breaking down and obstacles and things coming in your way, and it's about continuing to push yourself and continue to move forward.
Yeah.
Like I said, I get really tired around 20 kilometers, and then so far I've only done up to 26 or 30 kilometers, but that's really tough for me. And you're doing 100 kilometers, you're doing 160 kilometers, you're doing 24 hours. How do you continue to push yourself? Because there's got to be a point where you go, I've had enough. I'm cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you push through that?
Well, it's funny, through motivation books and all this, there's so many cliches, and it's weird when you start to kind of get good at something like this, is because those cliches are cliches because they're true. So the whole, if you can't run, you walk, and if you can't walk, you crawl, it's true, like, as long as you're moving forward, eventually, as long as you can push through the pain, eventually you'll enjoy it. Whether it's right at the end, we're literally crossing the finish line and sitting down and having a beer, if that's the enjoyment that you get from it. I watched a documentary the other day on I always forget her name, but she's one of the best ultra runners in the world. She's a Solomon athlete.
Courtney Dauwalter.
Yeah, Courtney Dauwalter. That's the one. I always forget her name.
Incredible. I watched those videos. I go, I don't know how she does that.
200 miles around Lake Tahoe. Yeah. And she was suffering half an hour in. She knew half an hour in it was going to suck. And then she spent the next 50 hours just suffering.
Yeah.
Like, that's a different level, you know what I mean? But that is the perfect example of if you can't run, you walk, and if you can't walk, you crawl. And as long as you're moving forward, eventually you'll kind of get to a point where you'll start to enjoy something. And even if it's enjoying the pain, if you become a masochist enough to enjoy that, then you're winning.
Yeah. So what do you, what do you focus on, and that kind of links it to, again, to business and real estate. What do you focus on when you say I've had enough, I'm quitting, I don't want to keep on going, this is horrible? What is your next thought after that?
It changes every time. I guess, the reason that I started, I'm starting to enjoy the process a lot more and actually enjoy the suffering and knowing the beauty. And I was talking to Terry Davis, who organizes the Northburn, and that the beauty about obstacle course racing and business and running and the one thing that all of these things have in common is no matter how much it sucks, eventually you're going to be able to go home and sit down and put your feet up and have a cup of tea.
Mm.
Whereas as opposed to, say, for example, depression and anxiety, you can't escape it. So that was the reason we were having that conversation. So in regards to, it's just about finishing what you've set out to achieve.
Yeah.
And then you can relax a little bit, and you can relax on the way. Absolutely. I mean, you have to. But yeah, during the process, it's just thinking about why you started, what you're going to achieve by finishing it. And then sometimes, as I say, if you can enjoy the suffering, enjoy the suck, embrace the suck along the way, then it becomes a lot easier,
Yeah.
And putting yourself in a position going towards discomfort. And the more you do that, the stronger you become, basically.
Yeah.
And eventually what sucked 2 years ago becomes normal, and then what was pretty normal 2 years ago actually becomes really enjoyable.
Yeah. Interesting about it. Just as you were talking about it, I remember a movie that I watched probably about a month ago about a Muay Thai fighter, and him saying that every time before he would walk into the ring, he knew he would go in his head that there's a good chance that I'm going to die, that I'm going to be in pain, I'm going to suffer, I'm going to get beaten up now. But this is what I chose to do, so let's get on with it.
Exactly.
So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and it's about making a choice. Sometimes even we don't have a choice, but I've just finished finished listening to one of Mark Manson's books. He wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a, and so brilliant books, and they're basically Buddhism for YGENs, like really good books. But he's talking about how a lot of people unfortunately avoid pain and become fragile. And that's the problem with a lot of people in today's society, is that everybody's cotton-wooled and, encouraged to avoid discomfort, so that then the things that are only slightly discomforting actually become quite unbearable.
Yeah.
Whereas if you kind of go towards that small amount of discomfort, that becomes pretty normal. And eventually you kind of get to the point where you're running 100 miles and you kind of feel okay afterwards.
Yeah. Incredible. So what are your, from where you are right now in life, what are your ultimate goals right now? To be a champion in something, to be number one, or to just enjoy? Where do you see yourself in, I don't know, a few years time?
It's hard because most of my motivating factors are intrinsic. They're not podiums, they're not positions on a podium. I feel like podiums and those sorts of things, they can only really motivate you for a short period of time. They can only really get you out of bed for maybe a month, you know what I mean? And because of that, I try to really focus on just becoming a better version of myself. And, for example, this race that I'm doing in June 6th, the Mount Difficulty Marathon, it's purely just a time factor. I'm aiming for my own goal. And if I achieve that time goal, I'll be ecstatic. I mean, the last time I did a run of anything like this, it probably would have taken me 8 hours. My goal is to do it in less than 6. I also know, based on what other people do, that if I do that, there's a chance that I can be on the podium. So maybe in the last 10 Ks, and I might start kind of eyeing up who's in front of me and maybe try and chase them down. But it's mostly just intrinsic values. So as for long-term goals, it's more just becoming the absolute best that I can be. And if that puts me on the podium, awesome. And if it doesn't, as long as I know that I've left absolutely everything out on the course, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. So you're going to have to do probably a lot more international races, wouldn't you?
To compete at an international level, yeah, absolutely. I am eyeing up a lot more local races. There's a few 100-milers, the Tarawera Ultra Marathon, those sorts of things. The speeds that those guys are racing 100 miles for are a lot faster than I can do. I'm a lot better. Basically, the more a race hurts, the better I do at it. And I think that's probably more of like a mental thing. These guys have been running 5-minute miles for years, and I'm just starting to break 6-minute miles. So it's just a different level of speed.
Yeah.
But as for longevity and embracing the suck, I think that's kind of where I prevail.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you you are sponsored now, I think by Merrill, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm actually wearing a Merrill shirt. Yeah, so Merrill help out with clothing and gear, and it's been amazing. I never really had good mountain gear before I got a lot of their stuff, and just being at lower temperatures at higher altitudes, having good quality gear, whether it's a Merrill or whoever else you choose, it makes a huge difference. But the stuff that I've been wearing is definitely, it's made it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Final question for people who kind of who look at this and think, I maybe I should change. Maybe I should start running. Maybe even long distance, or really just change their lives. What would be, say, 2 things that you would recommend for them to do or focus on or create for themselves so they can do that?
Well, firstly, I guess just kind of finding what they enjoy. Like I say, when I first started running, I hated running. I really, but I knew that I really enjoyed the obstacles in obstacle course racing. And I knew that to do more obstacles, I had to get from obstacle to obstacle faster, which means that I had to learn how to run. So whether or not they enjoy running or they enjoy mountain biking or swimming or kayaking or whatever it is, just finding something that you enjoy and actually getting out there and doing it.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, and I saw it just yesterday, but it makes a lot of sense, is cultures these days, they really kind of push adults towards doing things that are productive for the human race or for themselves or whatever it is, as opposed to actually just letting people play. And obstacle racing for me is just a big playground. It's just an excuse to kind of get out of my adulthood and kind of, be a child a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that would be my second thing, is finding something that you enjoy that can, get you out, but also B, not expecting for it to be productive, not expecting to need to run a 2-hour marathon, being able to run a marathon just for the sake of it, as opposed to needing to be able to be a professional athlete, make an income from it, so on and so forth, and actually going out and just enjoying your time.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Fantastic, Andrew. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that it will help people, inspire people, and help people look at things a little bit differently, embrace the suck, and continue to do what they're doing to improve themselves to become, as you said, a better version of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really appreciate your time.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
That's it.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.